Ladies and gentlemen, hey, hi, how you doing? Welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much for stopping by. As you guys can see here, we are on our trusty tier list of every single weapon in Modern Warfare 2, also in Warzone 2 as well for what it's worth, but keep in mind this is for multiplayer specifically. And of course, with the Season 1 update, we got the addition of 3 brand new weapons in the M13B, the BAS-P, and the Victus XMR, alongside a bunch of different weapon tuning, which I have the notes of over here on my other monitor. And today we are breaking down the new meta update. What is the best of the best, those guns that you absolutely want to use, what's maybe top tier, pretty good when it comes down to it, what's just generally competitive, what's more middle of the pack, what might be terrible. So I do want to start first with our new weapons because these 3 are all very solid. To me, the M13B is easily in top tier. It's honestly borderline absolute meta, I would say. Honestly, I think it could be absolute meta. I think there's an argument to be made there. Its damage per mag is a little bit lower because of the faster fire rate, but this thing has no recoil and it fries. The second I got this thing unlocked, even with like minimal attachments on it in multiplayer, it just felt so consistent, so strong. It's a fantastic rifle. Like, it's probably borderline top tier absolute meta, but I think it does land up top there in the best of the best as of right now. And we'll do some adjusting as we go through here, of course. The BAS-P also is absolute meta. I mean, this thing has a case for being the best SMG in the entire game. This thing's got a spicy TTK, great mobility, really solid attachment lineup as well, especially with tuning on there once you max it out. One of my new favorite guns in the game. And then the Victus XMR, I'm gonna say is top tier alongside all the other snipers. Like, sniping in this game is already very strong, and I think the Victus XMR is probably the best sniper in the game now. Curiously enough, yes, all the new weapons are really good. Who would have been surprised by that? The weapons that they're selling in the battle pass and in store bundles are really good. But yeah, all 3 new guns are very strong. Now let's talk the tuning and how this affects the overall meta. So like I said, I've got my list of all the patch notes here and what guns were buffed or what guns were nerfed. The Kastov 545, a decently competitive rifle. It's got a lower TTK, but it also has no recoil, so its damage output over range is going to be consistent because you're going to be able to land shots consistently. It actually got an ADS speed buff. I don't think that makes it any better than competitive, though. Honestly, it is already borderline average and competitive, so to me, it's staying right where it is. Now, the Kastov 74U, one of the best guns in the game, hands down, actually got an ADS speed nerf, so it's going to ADS in slower, and it got a hip fire nerf as well, so its spread's going to be wider, but its damage is still like top tier for close range. And when it comes to the close range meta, the Kastov 74U is the gun. Now, the M4, which I have as a top tier rifle here, really reliable, but maybe not as consistent as the STB or the Kastov 762, actually got a hip fire buff. I don't know why that was the change that was needed, so it's not really going to move anywhere, but it's still really good. Now, the M16, it got some changes, some weird ones though. They increased the fire rate, so that's a nice change. It'll kill a little bit faster because of that. The recoil got altered to be a bit better. The strafe speed is better, but if you put it in single fire instead of burst mode, it now has worse recoil and worse damage. And it in burst mode is still not good, and I'm gonna be honest, the M16 is staying in garbage. I hope this isn't a case of the Dragunov where it's just constantly going to be in garbage forever, but I don't see the M16 being an even average rifle right now. There are other rifles in the game that I would take over this every single time. It just cannot compete with its current statistics. The way that the burst feels over range, the semi-auto now being worse than it was before, it's not it. And by the way, as we are breaking down all this, all the meta changes, in the coming days, we're gonna be going over the top 10 best weapons with all the setups, all the attachments, tuning, perks, all that stuff as well. As we break all this down though, if you guys are new to the channel, every single day I got you covered with the latest news and updates, so you guys can always stay up to date with everything going on in game, but also the best class setups, loadouts, tips to help you guys improve as well. So it's your one-stop shop for everything between MW2 Warzone 2 and DMZ. And around 57% of viewers watching are not already subscribed, so if that's you, feel free to join us on the road to 900,000 subs. We are getting closer and closer every single day, and I would love to hit that goal by the end of the month. Also, if you guys enjoyed this video, if you find it helpful, let me know by dropping a like on it as well. Let's try and aim for 3,000 likes on this one. Now, next up here, this is an interesting one. The STB-556, the AUG rifle, which is one of the best close to mid-range weapons in the game and one of the best close to mid-range rifles as well, got a close range damage nerf. I think it takes 4 shots to kill now instead of 3. The patch notes are way too ambiguous and not detailed enough to tell us that information, but through testing you'd notice that. It also got a sprint to fire nerf as well. Now, overall, I do think the STB is still an absolute meta weapon. It's now closer to being top tier than it was before, and for close range, it's not going to be as dominant, but for mid-range, it is still probably the most most reliable choice because it's low recoil, really good velocity, really good TTK in general there, also good mobility for a rifle, so it's also staying up there. Now the FTAC Recon actually got a slight ADS buff, and honestly, I don't think that's enough to bump it up to competitive. It's still, in my opinion, one of the lower tier battle rifles, just because things like the Lockman 7.62 and the SO14, they're consistent. They're 2 to 3 shot kills. They're easy to use. The FTAC Recon seems a lot weaker over range from my experience, you know, unlocking Orion and going through and doing all the challenges and everything. I've used this thing plenty and I'm not really a huge fan. Now, another interesting one, the SAB 50 got a minor flinch nerf. Now, here's the thing. The more I look at this list and I sit here and say the SPR and the SAB 50, we all know they're basically the same gun, right? They feel the same, they look the same, but it's very clear the SPR has a slight advantage over the SAB 50. So I think I'm going to drop this one down into the top tier category. It's still very good. This minor flinch nerf that it got, where you're going to get more flinch now if you get shot, is noticeable, but it's not anything crazy. If it were to drop down into competitive or average, it'd need a pretty significant damage or ADS nerf there. That didn't happen, so it's still reliable. But the SPR, which is our next weapon here, which actually got a large flinch nerf, is still a pocket shotgun and the best quick scoping gun in the game. Absolute meta for that specific style of gameplay. I'm very surprised the SPR didn't receive a damage nerf, an ADS nerf, a potential one-shot range nerf. It got a very dumb nerf, in my opinion. I won't lie. I don't think the flinch nerf is gonna be something that impacts this thing's you know, pick rate whatsoever. It's still insane. It's fun, but super broken still. Now the Lockwood actually got a damage range nerf as well. Keep in mind, you only got 2 shots in this thing before you got to reload. It's leaning towards the average category here. I think it's competitive still as a shotgun compared to the Expedite 12 and the Bryson as well. I still think the Bryson 890 is underwhelming, and that's why it's an average versus competitive, but the Lockwood is going down. It's trending downwards right now. If it saw another nerf to its damage range or its overall damage, it's definitely dropping down. It's very much so borderline competitive and average. Now the Bryson 800 did actually see a close range damage buff, and it got a hip fire nerf, so kind of balancing it out there. It's now more competitive than ever. I don't think any of the shotguns are top tier, frankly, but it certainly is sitting in a nice place in competitive. Here's one that I'm actually very excited about. The Hurricane got an ADS buff, a headshot buff, and also a range buff as well. Headshot multiplier buff, I should say there. Absolutely bringing it up into the competitive category here. It already has a great damage per mag because the magazine is huge. It's very good for even mid-range fights as an SMG. 100% a competitive SMG now, thanks to those much needed buffs. Now, this one kind of makes me sad. The Mini Bach got a movement nerf, a range nerf, and an ADS nerf. Its overall TTK and its damage properties for an SMG, I think, absolutely still make it competitive, but I thought this was going to be one that I could make an argument for top tier, and I no longer think that's the case. The PDSW, the P90, also ended up getting a movement buff, a range buff, and an ADS buff. I think, honestly, this is the closest SMG we have to moving up next to the Vosnev and the Lockman sub, and frankly, I think this buff kind of does it. I am going to adjust this a bit here in a second with some of the other guns that weren't adjusted just based off of more playtime and experience with them, but the PDSW, it's good for close range, it's good for mid-range. Now these buffs definitely make it a lot more competitive. It also got new laser attachments as well, which make it even better. Then the last weapon that was adjusted here is actually the Vel 46, the MP7. It got a range buff, but even so, I'm actually going to drop this one down into the average category. The damage just does not feel consistent on the MP7. When I first started using it, I was liking it. It was feeling solid. And then the more I started going for challenges and camos and other stuff with it, it really did not seem like it was up to par with some of the other SMGs. So I'm dropping that one down. Now, some other things that I think need adjusted based off of more playtime here and looking more at the stats. The TAC-V, despite the insane damage, I'm bringing down into the just standard top tier level. I don't think it's absolute meta because the control is just so much more than on all these other guns. Every gun in top tier is consistent and solid and strong, but then absolute meta is easy to use, great stats. The TAC-V is not that. It's not super easy to use over range, so I'm bringing it down to top tier. For mid-range, it's still insane, but it's not the GOAT. I'm also going to bump the RPK up next to the RAL. Thing is spicy. Really good long-range TTK, next to no recoil, very consistent. Also, I'm bringing the P890 down back into competitive with some of the other pistols, and I'm bringing the Basilisk up into competitive because yes, the snake shots are insane. The more I've used them, the more I've come to like them as a competitive option for sure. I don't think any of the pistols are ridiculously crazy though now, so they're all probably just going to sit in competitive for the foreseeable future. But this is basically how the meta shapes up after the season 1 update, as we continue to see more weapon tuning updates go through, as we see new weapons added. We got the Chimera coming up here in season 1 Reloaded. We're going to continue to update this list and adjust the meta as needed, so you guys can quickly, you know, check out a video like this and see, okay, these are the guns that I want to use that are absolute meta. I might want to avoid some of the average weapons here, or the garbage cases in the form of the M16. So hopefully this helps you guys out in your journey towards unlocking Orion camo, getting some challenges done, or if you're just trying to do well in game using these weapons, focusing on the right ones in your gameplay. That is going to wrap things up though. If you guys enjoyed, or if you did find it helpful, let me know by dropping a like on the video. And if you're new to the channel, feel free to hit that subscribe button, turn on those post notifications. That way you can always guarantee you are up to date with everything going on in Call of Duty. But once again, thank you so much for tuning in, and until next time, take it easy, have an awesome rest of your day, and I'll catch you guys later. Peace out.